I have far too many unread books on my physical TBR, and I think it's time we remedy that. Hi friends, it's Haley and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about how I want to tackle my physical TBR. So in the past couple of months, I've made several videos which talk about the books that I have on my TBR, unhauling and hauling some books, and really starting to get back to a place that I'm excited about with my physical TBR and sort of doing an overhaul of my books. That being said, there still are many books on my physical TBR that are not new, and it feels hard to pick these older books off the shelf of my own fruition when I have these new releases that I'm really excited about that I want to pick up. So I've seen several videos recently of people doing a TBR takedown, or it's alternatively called read it or unhaul it. And that's where people will pull books off of their physical TBR and read them every single month in order to try to get their TBR pile as small as possible. I am still very much a mood reader at heart, and anytime I try to really lock myself into a long TBR, I really struggle to want to read those books. And I think the best way for me to actually tackle my physical TBR is to make it into a reading vlog and also be able to choose one of the books myself and what I'm interested in, and then choose two other books at random. That way I can't like weasel out of it and I have to read it, but it's only two books. Whereas when I usually make a TBR, it's like this large pile of books that I have to read in the month, and it becomes really challenging to do so. So I think that this strategy is going to work really well for me personally and how I like to read. And I think that this will be a more sustainable method than trying to put a bunch of things on a TBR and then not finishing them. So when I counted up all of my unread books, it looks like I have approximately 90 unread books, which is kind of insane, which is why we're doing this. So what I did is I put each one of the titles of these books on a graphic that I'll put up now, and every single month when I update, I will cross those off and show what books I have finished. And if I read anything else that's not part of the TBR that's off of my physical shelf, I will also mark those things off so we get an accurate picture of what things I finished. I've also taken the liberty of writing each and every title on scraps of paper that I have now in this container, and I will be pulling two titles from this every single month, and then I will give myself the freedom to choose one book that I am interested in every single month as well. So 3 books for every single month of this TBR takedown. I have no idea how long this is going to take, and I also don't have like an exact stopping point. I'm not going to say like, oh, I'll stop when I get to 50 or I'll stop when I get to 30. I'm not exactly sure. I think I just want to take it as it comes and see what I'm feeling like is working and not working and what makes sense. So for now, I think we're just going to do monthly updates without an exact end date in mind and see how it goes. There aren't many rules to this, but I will give myself the freedom to use the resource of audiobooks and also ebooks if I am on the go and I can download one of the physical books that I have on here. I want to give myself the best shot of reading everything on these shelves, and sometimes books have really small text or they don't feel very good in the hand, and in those instances, if there is an ebook or an audiobook that will help me achieve my goal, then I may turn to that as a means to enjoy the process and not feel so bogged down by books that don't tactilely feel the best to me. I'm a very tactile person, and if I can't have the perfect reading experience, I'd almost rather read it on an ebook, because then at least I can make the text larger and get through it in a way that feels a little bit more comfortable to me. So I'm leaving those resources available. I don't necessarily have to read the copy that I have on the shelf if there's another resource that will help me. So it is April, and it is now time to pull this month's 3 books for the TBR takedown. Okay, so let's start by pulling the book that I am most interested in and want to read first. I think this one is the one that I want to pick. This is Beta Vulgaris by Margie Sarsfield. This is a new release. It is a pretty funky and weird book from what I understand. Also, the cover looks very funky, but it's a book that I had anticipated coming out, and I did purchase it, I think 2 days or 3 days after it came out. So I am very excited about this one, and this is sort of the reason why I'm doing this, because I would just gravitate towards these type of books, these new releases that I'm really excited about that I just purchased. I would gravitate to that all the time and never pick anything else. So this is me saying I'm gonna read this new release as my personal pick and the thing I'm the most excited about. However, the other two will be just completely up to what the jar wants me to read. So that is my first pick. So here is the TBR container, and I'm going to pick one at random. Okay. Oh yay, I'm so excited. This is Scrap, if you can see that, with my terrible, terrible handwriting. So this is Scrap by Calla Henkel. I'm also so excited about this. I feel like karma is really on my side this time, because this is also a new release that I'm really excited about and hyped about. So that is pretty nice. But yeah, that makes me really happy, because this is another one that I was like super, super hyped about. I guess the TBR gods are in our favor today. Okay, let's really dig around here for this one. Okay, we have Afternoon of a Fawn, which is actually really great because it is on my 2025 TBR, and I have not read it yet. So yeah, that's pretty good. This is an older release. It was from 2019, and I bought it a couple of years ago. And yeah, it's on my 2025 TBR, so I need to read it anyway. So that is very convenient. So I am like super, super happy with my pulls for this month. It looks like I'm gonna be reading these 3 for my TBR Takedown this month, which is super, super exciting. I could not be more pleased with this stack. And I have high hopes, and I think that this is gonna go pretty well. So those are the books for the TBR, and let's get into reading. Hello and welcome to the vlog portion of this video. So from here on out, it's just gonna be a vlog. So as I said in the earlier portion of the video, I'm gonna allow myself to use other resources like ebooks and audiobooks in order to get all of these read. So for these 3 particular books, I'm gonna be reading Beta Vulgaris as a physical book entirely, because there is no access on Libby to an audiobook, so I'm planning on reading this one physically. Next, I have Afternoon of a Fawn, which I have queued up on Libby as an audiobook. This is only a 4-hour audiobook, so it should be very, very quick, and I intend to read that one pretty much exclusively on audio. And then for Scrap, I have both the audiobook and the physical book, and I'm gonna have to kind of decide how I feel about how quickly I want to get through the book and whether I'm connecting more with it as an audiobook or the written form. I've been finding myself struggling a little bit more lately with connecting to fiction on audio, which really wasn't a problem for me in the past, but I've been spending a lot of my time physically reading on my e-reader, and I find that I have been having really, really great comprehension on the e-reader, and then I shift over to an audiobook on my phone, and because I'm just able to run around and do whatever I need to do while listening to the audiobook, my comprehension hasn't been as great unless I'm like in the car and there's nothing else to do. So I'm definitely gonna do Afternoon of a Fawn on the audiobook just to make my life a little easier, but I'm not sure about Scrap. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I think what I'm gonna start with, as I was just talking about how audiobooks are not working great for me when I'm doing other things, ironically, I'm gonna start by listening to the audiobook while doing other things, because I do actually have a couple of projects that I need to work on, specifically some scrapbooking and dealing with all of the ephemera that I brought back from my New York trip. So I need to kind of turn that all into fodder for scrapbooking and etc. So I think I'm going to work on that while I listen to the audiobook, and that should be, you know, mindless enough that I can just, you know, focus on the audiobook while I do that. But that is the plan for now, so I'm gonna jump right into that audiobook. Okay, so it has been a few hours and I have finished the projects that I was working on, and in the process, I have gotten 41% of the way through Afternoon of a Fawn. So my thoughts so far are I am unsure. So if I haven't told you what the book is about, it is about a man named Marco who was accused of assaulting his coworker about like 40 some odd years in the past. And the accusation comes about because the woman, Julia, is working on writing a memoir, and someone contacts Marco to tell him that this is being written about him. He reads it, he freaks out, and then he is talking to his friend, who is one of the two narrators. Our narrators are Marco and then the friend that he confides in, and the friend is trying to figure out how he feels about the situation, where he stands on it, whether he will kind of excuse Marco's behavior and all of that. So far, it is hard to tell where the book is going and whether or not it will provide all of the nuance that I think is really important for this subject matter. This book was published, I think, in 2019. Yeah, April 2019. So there were a lot of things coming out around that time, whether it was on screen or in books, about Me Too and about this subject. So it's very timely and relevant. And the thing for me is that I've seen so many other media sources talk about this subject in a way that is really poignant and nuanced and powerful. And many of them have been from the perspective of women or have been written by women. One that comes to mind is This Is Pleasure by Mary Gateskill. I read it a couple of years ago. It's a little novella, and it tells the story of a series of women who have experienced harassment and assault from a man in power in their work environment. And what's interesting about it is that it shows the perspective of the man and also shows the perspective of a woman who is essentially an apologist for this man. And it is very much a nuanced, very interesting take on this idea. And even though I felt a lot of rage when I was reading it and frustration, I didn't think that the book was drawing the wrong conclusion or that the author or the overall message was, apologizing for this man. I felt like it was a very empowering story overall, but again, it was written from a woman's perspective. So this is very different in that it discusses the same issue, but it is by a male author. I do wonder whether Marco's friend, who's one of our narrators, is going to remain kind of neutral as he has been so far in the story. If so, I think that is a very interesting perspective and commentary on men who basically excuse the behavior of other men by not doing anything or not saying anything or not speaking up. So it is a very interesting perspective to explore, and one that I think would have great importance and meaning if that is the direction that the book is going in. However, I do kind of want him to speak up and to speak out against this guy, but I don't know if that is where this is going or whether their friendship will supersede the morality of what's going on. I have no idea. As of right now, like I said, that's my experience with it. I'm just trying to keep as neutral as possible myself and not get too worked up about it, because I'm hopeful that this book will go in a direction that feels meaningful or important. What I realized, which was interesting, is that if I came across this book now, I may not have picked it up. I bought it several years ago, and honestly, I may not have purchased it now because there is such a specific niche of types of books that I like to read, and this does not necessarily fall into that category anymore. But I did promise myself that I would try to, honestly read and get through the books on my physical TBR. And even though I may not have picked this up now, I did pick it up a couple of years ago and thought that I would like it at that point. So I am trying to give it an honest try and hoping for the best. But yeah, that is my update for now, and I'm gonna continue reading and let you know when I have something else to say. Okay, so I just finished Afternoon of a Fawn, and I'm upset. Essentially, Marco is absolutely insane and incredibly misogynistic, and he gets continually worse throughout the book, to the point where at the end of the book, spoilers right now if you're wanting to read this book, but if not, Marco is hosting a gathering for the presidential debate of Clinton versus Trump. And the friend, who's the other narrator, had met up with the woman who had accused Marco a couple of weeks prior to this gathering, and that was a whole thing as well. But during the gathering, the friend comes in, he's bought a bottle of champagne to share with everyone, and then Marco like comes up to him and is like, "Oh, did you hear that Julia just ran in front of a train and she's dead now?" And the friend is like, "No, what the fuck? Like, I did not know that." And he's like reeling from that experience because he just saw her and didn't get the indication that she would do that. And then Marco essentially says, "Oh, I thought you knew, and I thought that's why you brought the champagne." And then of course he backpedals and he's like, "Oh, that's not what I meant." But then he comes back later with another like celebratory nudge to the friend, like, "Oh yeah, she's not gonna torment me anymore, is she?" Basically, he's completely insane and demented, and I have no problem just completely writing him off. And I still feel similarly about the friend. I think that the friend is trying to have some kind of neutrality in the situation. But again, as I said earlier, being neutral is ultimately in support of the wrongdoer. And I think him showing up for Marco and trying to hear from Julia and having compassion for Julia, but not enough to cut ties with Marco or to say anything or to do anything at all. He's just stuck in the middle and he's hearing two sides of the story and he's not making any effort to side with one person or another. But ultimately, like I said, that leads to siding with Marco, and he ends up with Marco, quote unquote, celebrating the end of this whole situation. I don't know what to rate this because I feel revolted. I feel disgusted in this whole situation. I think that Marco is an absolute pig. He's terrible. And I just don't know whether that means that this book should be like highly rated because it made me feel so much, or if it should be low rated because I am coming away from this hating these characters so much. However, if this was a book about two unlikable women who were doing messed up things, I would probably like it because that's the type of literature I like to read, and I would be happy to see those characters existing. However, because this book is about two unlikable men, I have a hard time rating it highly, even though it did evoke a strong emotion and I can appreciate the work that went into creating that emotional response. I just think that unlikable men in media are so prevalent as it is that it doesn't feel like a big deal necessarily to create a book that has unlikable men. And I feel like maybe it's not fair of me to rate this low because of that and because of like my biases, but also I don't want to rate this highly because I did not like it. I did not like these characters and it made me feel icky and gross. So anyway, that was kind of a difficult book to start with as the first book in this challenge, but I have one book down on my TBR takedown, and next up I think I'm going to start Beta Vulgaris. Okay, I feel like a bit of a hot mess because I've been reading outside and it is 80 degrees today in April, which is insane. But I've been reading outside and enjoying that. But I have started Beta Vulgaris and I am only at the beginning of chapter 2. I'm on page 12 and I already have thoughts, so I want to talk to you about that. So far this book is following two characters, Elise and Tom. They are girlfriend and boyfriend, and they are headed halfway across the country to participate in a sugar beet harvest, which they're hoping to arrive on time to, and they're currently in the process of traveling, and they've had to stay in parking lots, just sleeping in their car. But the story opens to them getting a room at a Motel 6, and the narrator is talking a lot about food and calories, and she's also talking a lot about how much money she has in her bank account. So even though this is a third person narration, we are more so following Elise's thoughts and the things in which she is keeping from Tom or not keeping from Tom. However, their relationship dynamic seems really cute and sweet so far. Now, I don't know if that is going to change as the book continues. I have a feeling that it is, just because of the nature of this type of story. A lot of times these, happy, romantic, loving long-term relationships in these type of weird women books kind of take a turn for the worse. So I'm not sure how that's going to go. But right now, their relationship is very cute and sweet, and I'm enjoying that. But what I really wanted to talk to you about is the fact that Elise is hilarious. Like, she just says the most out-of-pocket things. Like, her boyfriend is kind of being ridiculous and having a lot of road rage, and the book says, Elise, for some reason, did not enjoy the company of angry men. Like, I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it was. And the other thing that she says that's really funny is related to her counting calories and some possible disordered eating in her past, or actually in her present, but she's kind of telling us it's in her past. However, she says something really funny. She says, all their friends, especially the couple who had recommended the harvest to Elise and Tom after doing it the year before, had expressed great enthusiasm for this trip they were taking across America. But most of the highways so far looked identical. Trees and billboards that advertised Jesus as the bread of life. Caloric content unknown, in parentheses. It's just goofy, and I really, really like this character's voice and the way that this is being narrated so far. She's really funny. She's really kind of weird and silly, and it's in a way that I think is smart as well. So I don't know, I'm really enjoying this character's voice so far, and the opening to this book really drew me in immediately. So I'm going to continue reading outside for a while, but yeah, I just wanted to share my very excited update with you because I really like this, and I'm feeling so glad so far to be back in the realm of books that I enjoy. I love the weirdness. I love a book written by a woman, and I am just so happy to be back in my wheelhouse of books. So I'm going to continue reading. Hello. I am in Tulsa today. I am here for a book club, but I got here a bit early to visit the Tulsa Botanic Gardens, which I've never been to before. I am a huge botanical garden person, arboretums. I did a lot of that back in New York, but for some reason, the amount of times I've been to Tulsa, I've never been here. So I'm going to go explore the botanical garden, and I will take you along with me. Okay, I'm back. I'm very warm. It is a very hot day today. It's like 82, which feels very warm to me. But the botanical gardens were really pretty. They were smaller than the Wichita one that I really love, but they were still beautiful. There were a lot of tulips and irises blooming, which makes sense for April. When I love irises so much, so it was so cool to see those, and the tulips were pretty too. So lots of greenery to look at, and then some flowers. Obviously, like the summer flowers are not out yet, but a lot of the daffodils have already bloomed and finished blooming, so I'm kind of here at like an in-between time. But that's okay. It was still really pretty. But I wanted to fill you in on my reading progress over the past couple of days that I haven't filmed. So far I am at page 182 in Beta Vulgaris. I brought it with me today so that I could read it as I sit and hang out at a coffee shop waiting for my book club. So I'm definitely going to do some more reading today. But yeah, so far I still really love this book. It has gone in such a creepy direction, which I anticipated. What I said earlier about their relationship being so cute and nice, obviously it is completely fraught, and they were kind of using that as like a, I don't know, a way to get us invested and get us interested in the couple and then turn things around. So I am intrigued. I still am loving the writing style. I am very unsure how this is going to end, but it feels very similar in style to something like I'm Thinking of Ending Things or Foe, which is anything by Ian Reid. Kind of feels Ian Reid-ish in the way that like these little things are just creepy along the way and things just start to feel slightly off, even though everything is technically fine. And then all of a sudden you get to the insanity of it all, and then later you realize, oh, all of those things were pointing back to this. So I'm really excited to see what we're building up to. I feel like it's probably going to be a big catastrophe, but it's really, really great so far, and I am loving it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I did start Scrap. I listened to a couple of hours of the audiobook this morning on my drive here, and I'm going to continue listening through it throughout my driving today. So far, I'm really, really liking it. I am a big fan of the like true crimey vibe to it, and also like the art scene and scrapbooking. It's all just like very, very interesting to me. And I know that it's going to get kind of sinister as time goes on. So far, I'm still kind of in the build-up stage of the book. We haven't found out what the big thing is yet, but we're learning about the main characters, and the main character is just starting to scrapbook. So it's been really interesting so far. I'll talk more about it later, but for now, I'm going to head on to lunch because I am very, very hungry. So I'm going to head to lunch, grab a bite, grab some coffee, and do some more reading. Okay, so I have completed Beta Vulgaris by Margie Sarsfield, and I have some thoughts. First of all, this book is a fucking trip. I could not even compute what was happening throughout this book. However, I loved it. I think that I'm ultimately going to give it 4 stars, even though I've said I loved it several times, because honestly, I felt a little bit unsatisfied by like the ending, specifically the last like 60 to 70 pages. Just didn't feel the same as the rest of the book, and I didn't feel as like into them. So I think I'm gonna bump it down to 4 stars because I kind of was left feeling a little bit unsatisfied. However, I really, really liked the rest of this book. Her insights are really funny. The things she says sometimes hilarious, and there were just a lot of quotes that I could either relate to or thought were really funny. So I did find a lot of value and enjoyment in this book. I don't know that I can really explain like a specific criticism for the ending. I mean, from a like artistic standpoint, the pacing really slowed down towards the ending, and she started to lose a lot of that humor and wit that I enjoyed, which for a character descending and spiraling into a deep depression and losing touch with reality, it makes sense artistically why she would lose some of the humor that she had and why the pacing would slow down, because for her each day feels so long and monotonous and time is just stretching on forever. However, just from the perspective of enjoyment, the last, 1/3 of this book, almost 1/3 of this book, was less exciting and interesting to me than the first 2/3. But yeah, overall, I did really enjoy this book. I liked the tone, I liked the humor. I really liked being inside of Elise's head, even though it was difficult at times and upsetting. I thought that she was a very interesting character to hear from, and I had a lot of empathy for her and her experiences, and just the whole beats aspect too, like super fucking weird and so fun and just strange, and I love that. I love when books just take something completely unexpected and make that like one of the center points of the book. So yeah, that was the second book down for my TBR takedown, and I also finished Scrap. I actually read this entire audiobook yesterday, and it was like a 10-hour audiobook. I was only listening to it on 1.5 speed, so I did listen to this book for quite a few hours yesterday. I was in the car for a while, but I also like was listening to this until like midnight last night. Oops. So if I didn't explain what it's about a woman named Esther who is living this idyllic life in the mountains with her girlfriend, and she's an artist. She does craft, she binds books, and she also previously had painted, and that, you know, comes back later on in the book. But something crazy kind of shakes up her family life, and all of a sudden she is in need of money, and this super rich woman that she met by chance offers her the opportunity to scrapbook her family's like 20 years worth of random stuff. And she ends up taking the position because she needs the money. And that leads her on an obsessive path of trying to solve a murder and figuring out what happened in this family. There's a lot of different twists and turns that happen, and she's also true crime obsessed. She is listening to true crime podcasts like a ridiculous amount, to the point where it becomes like a literal obsession, and she starts to see her life as true crime. So it's a novel about obsession. It's a novel about social media and narcissism. It talks about parasocial relationships, and Esther is a pretty unlikable character at many times. She has a lot of questionable choices and behaviors. She's not a very nice person, and I still really enjoyed being in her head and hearing her thoughts. Even though she was frustrating at times, I still really liked hearing the story from her perspective. So with this one, it was a total page turner, and I found it to be really fun, but it did feel just like a thriller. It wasn't, you know, saying anything new social commentary wise. It wasn't really diving super deeply into any of the themes. It was just a really fun page turning story, which is totally fine. Not every book needs to like say something grand about society, but it did feel like this was mainly just a fun thriller that I read and got super into, and also talks a little bit about Gone Girl and kind of does a Gone Girl thing a little bit. So I've heard it called like a lesbian Gone Girl, which it definitely was. I can totally see that. And it took a lot of inspiration from true crime, and the story felt like it had a lot of the tropes of true crime and had some like kind of funny cliches in it, which kind of bordered on parody, but it was still in such a way that it felt fun. It didn't feel annoying necessarily, but there were certainly parts that did not feel realistic at all, but they did definitely play into like some of the tropes of the genre. So yeah, sorry I didn't like take you along for more reading of this book, but I literally just audiobooked it and read it all day yesterday. So I ended up really liking it. I gave this one 4 stars as well, again, because I felt like it was really fun, but there were some, you know, things about it that maybe weren't the best, or things that could be improved upon, and I didn't feel like this book like meant the world to me in the way that 5-star books do typically. So yeah, I would give it 4 stars. I would give this one 4.5. I don't know. I mean, I'm still kind of between 4 and 5 stars for this one, but both of these were very enjoyable, and I'm really glad that we kind of made a turnaround, because the first book wasn't so great, but these two were very enjoyable, and I'm really glad that I read them for this video. So yeah, those are the first 3 books for my TBR takedown. So that is pretty much it for this episode. I plan on picking another 3 books for episode 2 in about a week. It's getting towards the end of April, and I'm gonna need to pull a couple more books for May pretty soon. So I will take you along with me when that happens in episode 2. But for now, that is the end of this TBR takedown episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.